talking about was Congress. And I take it the reason they were inquiring was precisely so that they could fulfill with information their constitutional function to pass legislation one way or the other. Isn't that true?
Yes, I suppose that's true.
And that you regarded as outside interference.
There was contempt for the law.
If the president could authorize a covert break-in, and you don't know exactly where that power would be limited, you don't think it could include murder or other crimes beyond covert break-ins, do you?
Oh, I don't know where the line is, Senator.
During your discussions with Mr. Casey, Mr. McFarland, and Mr. Poindexter about the plan, did a question ever arise among you as to whether what was being proposed was legal?
Oh, no. I don't think it was. I mean, first of all, we operated from the premise that everything we did do was legal.
Well, I'll go back to and there was contempt for the truth.
Now, Mr. Mitchell, do you draw a distinction between not volunteering and lying?
Well, it depends entirely on the subject matter.
When you're asked a direct question and you don't volunteer the direct answer, you might say you're not volunteering, but actually you're lying on those respects.
Well, I think we'd have to find out what the specifics are of what particular occasion and what case.
Could you explain to me the difference that you think there is between knowing that you've left a false impression or a wrong impression and lying, to use an old-fashioned term?
Yeah, I think lying we really mean, deliberate effort to mislead people, to a deliberate effort to leave them with a misleading impression. What I hoped to do was to avoid the question and duck the question as I...
President Reagan's men did learn one thing from Watergate. Richard Nixon said it only last year. Just destroy all the tapes.
Where are these memoranda?
Which memoranda?
The memoranda that you sent up to Admiral Poindexter seeking the president's approval.
I think I shredded most of that. Did I get them all? I'm not trying to be flippant. I'm just...
Well, that was going to be my very next question, Colonel North. Isn't it true that you shredded them?
I believe I did.
Do you think that what we've seen of the secret sale of arms to Iran and the private war in Nicaragua is on a par with what we saw at Watergate?
Oh, the substance of it is far above Watergate. You have the sale of armaments to terrorist groups, which can only foment more kidnapping and more terror and finance it. You have the doing of this by members of the armed forces, a very scary thing. You have the government, at part at least, put in motion doing things that Congress has forbidden, direct illegality. You have constitutional abuses that are enormous.
Watergate did drive Richard Nixon from office.
I shall resign the presidency effective at noon tomorrow.
The imperial presidency was down, but not out. Ronald Reagan ran in 1980 with a strong and clear message. The world was a hostile place and closing in on America. Russian troops were in Afghanistan, Sandinistas were in Nicaragua, and Americans were being held in Iran. President Reagan wanted to reinvigorate the CIA, and he chose a tough director to run it, his campaign manager, William Casey. They were ideological soulmates, true Cold Warriors on the offensive. In 7 years, Ronald Reagan approved over 50 major covert operations, more than any president since John F. Kennedy. Reagan and Casey set the agenda, but it was this man's job to carry it out. In Oliver North, they had their 007. North's primary mission was to keep the Contra war going, despite the congressional ban on aid. For 2 years, he masterminded a privately funded airlift to Honduras. According to some reports, criminal elements used the secret airlift to smuggle drugs back into the United States, with profits being used to buy more weapons for the Contras. 2 congressional committees are investigating those reports.
Were there Contras who relied on the profits of narcotics in order to buy arms and to survive? Yes, I'm convinced of that.
Senator John Kerry of Massachusetts heads a Foreign Relations Subcommittee.
Once you open up a clandestine network which has the ability to deliver weapons or other goods from this country, leaving airfields secretly, under the sanction of a, quote, covert operation, with public officials, DEA, customs, law enforcement, whatever, pulled back because of the covert sanctioning, you've opened the pipeline for nefarious types who are often involved in these kinds of activities to become the people who bring things back in.
Oliver North had been told the airlift was using questionable characters. Robert Owen, his contact man with the Contras, wrote from the field that some of the leaders were running drugs. In February of '86, Owen advised North that a resupply plane had been used for shipping drugs. In Owen's words, part of the crew had criminal records.
The second sentence says, nice group the boys choose. Who are the boys?
CIA.
So what happens is the President of the United States says, this is the national security, you must step back and let these people do their job, and therefore a lot of smugglers, drug traffickers, others go through the back door.
I don't think the President of the United States said specifically, look the other way to these things. I don't think the President of the United States knew these things were going on. But the President of the United States did encourage to such a degree the continuation of aid to the Contras. And it was so clear through Casey and Poindexter, et cetera, that this was going to please the President if it happened. It's clear that there were those who turned their heads and looked the other way because they knew that this major goal was out there and it was part of it. And if there happened to be these minor aberrations, as people referred to them, that was a price you were paying in the effort to accomplish the larger goal, which larger goal, obviously, was against the law and against the wishes of the Congress and against the American people.
How does it happen that to be anti-communist we become undemocratic, as if we have to subvert our society to save it? This is partly the answer. The powers claimed by presidents and national security have become the controlling wheel of government, driving everything else. Secrecy then makes it possible for the president to pose as the sole competent judge of what will best protect our security. Secrecy permits the White House to control what others know, and that's power. How many times have we heard a president say, if you only knew what I know, you would understand why I'm doing what I'm doing? But it's a self-defeating situation. Someone said, everything secret degenerates, even the administration of justice. So in the bunker of the White House, the men who serve the president put loyalty above analysis, and judgment yields to obedience. Just salute and follow orders.